za ka gane idan yana lakin da an bashi da kana da abin da aka
ana jira idan
hello, please, gentlemen, your mics should be muted, please. All mics should be muted, please. Kindly let's just abide by this simple directive, please. We will really appreciate it so that we will have a hitch-free, seamless, noiseless webinar in the most professional way. And please also, if you are not the guest speaker, please ensure your videos are turned off so we can have a sustainable bandwidth, so that our bandwidth that we're using from this end can sustain all participants in the meeting. Thank you very much as you comply with these instructions. In a bit, we'll start in a bit now. Thank you. All right, good afternoon. Final welcome to the webinar session. Please, there are some people who still have their mics unmuted. Please unmute your mic. Mute your mic, please. Please have your mics muted. Please. Give me a second. Let me just try and see.
Architect Gabas, Saidu, can you please mute?
Okay, sir.
Please mute. Please ensure your mics are on mute, please. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's just for and other back-end crew who will be assisting in ensuring we have a hitch-free webinar. Okay, our theme for the webinar today is earning your stripes as an architect. Earning your stripes as an architect. And our guest speaker is the MD, ATO. Interference, noise interference, and we can also mitigate that interference, and also for videos to be turned off so that we can sustain the bandwidth from our own end here. You will only be permitted to unmute when during the Q&A session when you are asked to do so, when you are granted that permission by the moderator to unmute during the Q&A session. Please kindly place your comments, observations, or questions in the chat box for us to be able to collate there so that we have the list of interferences, people trying to talk across the during the session of the meeting. I can still see there are some people who have their mics turned on. Felix Malum, please turn off your mic, please. Mute your mic. Thank you very much. Emekoma Chukuma, please mute your mic. Chukweneke, please mute your mic. Harrison Erabo, please mute your mic. Thank you. Like we're saying, please just mute your mic.
Please mute your mic.
Stay muted. If you've muted, you won't be talking. We won't hear your voice. Thank you. All right, couple of other guidelines, housekeeping guidelines. Please use the chat box to articulate your comments, observations, and questions during the webinar session. Now, at the end or during the course of the Q&A session, the link to earn your Akon CPD point will be posted. So you are employed to wait till that very end, to the very end of the webinar, so that the whole process of you being part of this meeting, part of the process of you being part of this meeting will be achieved, which is also to earn your CPD, Akon CPD point. Kindly note that if there may be any immediate concerns, you may require to raise to us on this side of the broadcast center. Please, there is a number, Francis, post your number. There's a number that we posted to the chat box now. Kindly reach that number through chat only, just through chat messages or text messages, please only, so that we are not distracted by calls trying to come in during the session. Thank you very much. Please, we still have some people who have their Kelechi Chima, please mute your mic. Omasho Geraldine Noyem, please mute your mic. Thank you very much. Right now, we are going up full speed now to start the session with reading the citation of our guest speaker before we bring her up and set the ball rolling. I want to assure you we are going to have a very instructive and insightful session because we have a very cerebral guest speaker to do a yeoman's job on delivering this lecture this beautiful afternoon, Tuesday afternoon. And the person who will be reading the citation is our co-host Francis Azubike from the Anchor PRO and Media Directorate. Francis, over to you. Thank you.
I think I'm there, but I can't hear anything. Can you hear it? Don't stop, come on, come on. Am I?
Kindly give us a minute or two for the citation to load. Thank you. Okay, not to take too much of our time, I just want to, can you hear me? Please, just with the wave of the hand, raise of the hand, please, I want to know if you can hear me. Okay, thank you. Hamatu Idris, you can hear me? All right, okay, thank you.
I can hear you.
All right, I'm going to just go ahead and read the citation of our guest speaker because I think Francis is having challenges loading his own copy of the citation. Ekaite completed her bachelor's and master's degree in architecture at the Enugu campus of the University.
Can we get the soft copy?
Of Nigeria, University of Nigeria, that should be, and started her career as a pupil architect with Sheltak Associates in 1991. In January 1994, she joined ATO Architects Limited and became one of the firm's directors in December 1998. Her experience in the architecture and construction industries have been quite diverse. She is a strong project and design architect who has won several design competitions. Her experience includes work in master planning, oil and gas, the aviation industry, corporate and financial institution, residential and housing projects, ecclesiastical buildings, educational institutions, recreational facilities, parks, and playgrounds. As construction manager, she has also carried out estimating and seeing several projects to completion. She is experienced in physical needs assessment of building structures. She worked at KEO and Associates as construction manager and design builders, and Community Development Solutions, LLC, sister companies in Detroit, Michigan, in the US from 2005 to 2012, and became a Michigan licensed builder, a certified playground safety inspector, a lead accredited professional, and received a total of 40 hours of OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration training. She is licensed to practice architecture in Nigeria by ACON, and she is a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. She first became an international associate of the American Institute of Architects around 2006 while living in Detroit. She became managing director of ATO Architects Limited in November 2019, on time to be at the helm in navigating the firm through a pandemic and a recession. Ekaite is a published writer and an avid cycler. Ladies and gentlemen, architects and professionals from other walks of life, please join me as we bring on to the floor our guest speaker, architect Ekaite Basi Fuja. Architect Ekaite, you have the floor, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. Down, and then we can all focus. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Hold on, please. Please, can we please mute our mics, please? Thank you.
Nothing else I have ever tasted. Your generation how did you do it?
I'm trying to unmute. Oh my God. Why can't people just Abide by simple. Okay.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, please. I think we have a quiet now. Some quiet now, please.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. Sorry for the interference.
Okay.
I believe it's okay. Please just hold on while I mute. Obasanjo Olubukola, please mute your mic.
Please
Obasanjo
mute
Olubukola.
Everybody, admin. You can mute every.
We are trying to do that. Please just be calm and be patient. We are trying to do that from here. It's not as easy as you think. Thank you. Just be calm. We'll get everything coordinated from here now. Thank you. Amadi Francis, please mute your mic. Chino Adekoju, please mute your mic.
Okay, I'm hearing.
Right there.
Amadi Francis, please mute your mic. Usman Johnson, please. Usman Johnson John, please mute your mic. Please. Okay, Architect Ekaite, may I say it's safe for you to kick off now? Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry for the distractions.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, fellow colleagues. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Association of Nigerian Chartered Architects, for inviting me to speak. Speaking like this is always an opportunity to think and to learn. And to this afternoon, we're going to be talking about earning your stripes as an architect. Now, in thinking about this topic, as we know, we are in a profession where you never learn everything. It's not like a few other professions where you reach a point and basically you have most of the knowledge that you need. Right to your grave, you're always learning something new because the construction industry is constantly changing. Most of us have gone through 6 years of school. For those who are not students here and who are in practice at some level, we've gone through 6 years of school, maybe more, gone through national service, and then if we are licensed, another at least 2 years, usually more than that, to become licensed. So let's say, give or take, you spend 10 years getting educated before you become licensed. And I dare say that based on experience, that is when your real education actually starts, when you come out of that whole learning process and actually enter into the business of delivering on projects for your clients. So in thinking about this topic, earning your stripes, I thought about it from 2 points. One is earning military stripes. Those who are familiar with this industry, that you move from one rank to the next rank, from lieutenants to captain to major, and as you move through those ranks, they have their lapels or whatever those things are, where the stripes are increased, or the stars or whatever, to show the rank of that person. And in a sense, architecture can be like that, because over time you gain experience. We are working in an organization, maybe you're promoted from one level to the other, you pass your exams, you are given greater and greater responsibility, because again, the job is such that, anything you do is a huge responsibility. Sometimes it's a matter of life and death, to give that responsibility to somebody who may not be prepared for that responsibility. So that's on the one hand. And then on the other hand, I also thought about earning your stripes, like you see the stripes of a zebra, and the zebra, for those who know or may not know, who just learn, each zebra has stripes, and no two zebras have the same pattern of stripes, and so essentially the stripes of a zebra are like a fingerprint. And so I thought of it from that point of view, where as you grow as an architect, you develop your own personality, your personality in terms of the work that you put out there, in terms of the way you do your work, in terms of the way you present your work, in terms of the types of buildings you decide to do, and in terms of how you engage your clients and that kind of thing. And then of course, more importantly, the kind of knowledge and experience that you acquire as you move through your professional life, and so some of the things that I'll be talking about this afternoon sort of straddle both of these things, but I just wanted to lay that as a background. So this is a table of contents, and you understand why it is like this very shortly. This is a quote that I used at the beginning of this year, and there are just two words here that I think that should resound with all of us, and those two words are "I press." And again, you will understand, because basically, as architects, you and everybody really, from one day to the next, from one season of your life to the next season of your life, you are gaining new knowledge, you are gaining new experiences, and leaving behind the old. You are making mistakes and hopefully correcting those mistakes. I have a quote here, because I'm not going to really define, as such what architecture is, because there are several definitions of what architecture is. But Frank Gehry has said, and Frank Gehry has had his own share of problems and successes as an architect. He has said that architecture must solve complex problems. We must understand and use technology. We must create buildings which are safe and dry, respectful of participants, and face all the myriad of issues of social responsibility and even placement. And this is very applicable to us here. So essentially what we are going to be doing this afternoon is running as quickly as possible. Time has passed, so I'm going to run as quickly as possible through the letters of the alphabet to see words, some key words that, carry, that carry things that are very important to us as a profession. The first, of course, is architecture. What is architecture? I think everyone has a definition. Everybody knows what architecture is to them. But one of the things we should be thinking about, what does it take to create architecture? What does architecture mean to individuals, to corporations, to children, to families, to women, to the disabled? When we design for people, how will our buildings be received by these different groups of people? By the old, by the young, by business people, traders, the sick, the curious, that's maybe those who are traveling adventurers, the student, the teacher, manufacturing industries, and so on. How will architecture be received by these different groups of people? Now, architects, again, this is related to this. The architect is the one who provides these services. Now, as an architect, one of the responsibilities that they are going to have as an architect is to issue architects instructions. And I mentioned this because it's a huge responsibility. It can make or break a project if an architect does not know what he is doing, how he should issue those instructions. And it's very important and instructive in the context of a properly run contract, where the architect is the only professional, that is mentioned in the standard contract that we generally use, and so when he issues instructions, those instructions carry weight. The architect has to be accountable. I don't think I need to delve into that too much, but accountability is key. He has to be accountable to his client, to the other stakeholders who he leads. He has to be accountable also to bodies like government and regulatory bodies. He has to be accountable to all of these people. He has different roles and responsibilities where each of these stakeholders is concerned. Adaptability, very important, because as you know, like I was mentioned in my citation, I joined the firm in November, and then late February, early March, we had to deal with a pandemic, and we had to change a lot of things in a hurry. Hopefully that kind of thing doesn't happen again, but you have to be flexible. You have to be, adaptable to change, because, change can come in many different forms. Change can come from even the context of your environment. I mean, like, for example, now between last week and this week, the price of diesel has increased by over 30%, So all of these changes, sort of affect what we do as architects. Now, the brief, sometimes when we take our client's brief, sometimes some of us do not understand the importance of really understanding what the client wants. When you take a brief, you have to be very clear so that sorry, I don't know when you stopped hearing me, but yeah, so I was talking about—
Sorry, Architect Ekaite, I had to mute everybody so I could have a control. So every time that happens, your co-host, you can just unmute yourself, or I can do it from here. Yeah.
Okay, no
Sorry
problem.
about that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, so I was talking about the brief. Now, when a client gives you a brief, with the myriad modes of communication that we have now, there are several ways you can receive a brief from a client. It can be by email, it can be by phone call, it can be by text message or WhatsApp message, all kinds of ways. But whatever way you receive this brief, whether it's verbally or over drinks or whatever, it's very important that you communicate this brief back to the client and fully understand everything surrounding this brief. So you're going to have to go and research before you communicate back to your client. Okay, this is what you said you want and all of that. You have to research, for example, the site. He has to give you that information. Usually the client should give you that information. The site, the land, what's the title on the land? Where is the location of this place? What utilities come into this place? Is there power? Is there water? And so on. So in communicating your brief back to the client, all of this needs to be captured. To earn your stripes as an architect, you have to be bold, because as an architect, your primary role in the community, in the context in which you find yourself, is to provide solutions, and provide solutions for real problems, for real problems in the environment. When we see high-rise buildings and those kinds of things, they are just a fraction of the buildings that we should be dealing with as architects. So it needs you to be able to step outside of your comfort zone, to provide these solutions. An example of work that has shown some boldness, somebody stepping outside of their comfort zone, is the Makoko Floating School, picture of which you'll see there on the right. And those are the kind of things which require deep thinking. They are not the normal, but this solved a problem at the time. BIM, Building Information Modeling. You know, every architect today has to have a working knowledge of building information modeling, and I'll talk about it a bit later. You know, I'm just going to mention it in passing for now, as time is fast moving. One of the things that your client relies on you for is to give them information about how much they are going to spend. You are the first person that they are going to ask how much. The quantity surveyor is your consultant, depending on, you know, the point at which you are on the project. You know, if it is early on, you should be in a position to be able to give ballpark high-level figures to your client. That's what they'll be relying on you for. And that's what will make the difference between you and somebody who cannot provide that information. And that sort of brings me to building materials. You know, apart from, you know, being conversant with what is available in the market, and maybe even being involved in experimenting with various building materials, you should know at any time, especially in a country like ours, you know, what the prices of current building materials are. So for example, you know, you may or may not know that to mix 1-2-4 concrete, you require about 6 to 6.5 bags of cement for 1 cubic meter of concrete. That's the kind of information that you need to have at the top of your head, you know, so that, you know, your client has confidence in you, because at the end of the day, you know, you are just as good as, you know, the clients who trust your judgment, who trust your information, you know, who trust, you know, your guidance. You have to have bandwidth. And what bandwidth simply means, is just like radio and even this internet, how much can pass through you? You know, how much can you cope with at a time in terms of information? Because architecture is wide and the construction industry is wider, you know. I will talk later about diversity, you know, but you have to have, you know, bandwidth to be able to cope with the different types of information that you know is available out there, and be able to use these different types of information. You have to have a broad mind, you know, and be open to change, be open to new ideas, be open to new suggestions, you know, because, you know, quite honestly, there is nobody who knows it all, and we will make mistakes. You know, you want to reduce the number of mistakes you make, because mistakes cost money, you know, but you have to learn to listen to other people. You have to brainstorm with other people, you know, get ideas from other people, younger than you, older than you, more experienced than you, less experienced than you. In a place, in a context like ours, you know, where, you know, there is a big social difference between, say, us and construction workers, the more you engage with construction workers, say your laborers or your masons, and so the more you engage with them, the more knowledge you acquire and the better understanding you have of how things are done and how things can be done better. And talking about better, you know, you always want to be one step ahead. There's always a better way of doing things, especially in these days of technology. You know, yeah, so a quote by Anthony Robbins: the only limit to your impact is your imagination and your commitment. So for C, our clients, you know, without clients, we don't have anything really, you know. And one of the key things that you must do with your clients is communicate with them. There are a lot of clients who will waste your time, who, are not, sometimes not prepared for the dreams that they have. And you have to learn to recognize that sometimes, and we've had, several examples of that, where, they come with their dreams and all of that, they succeed in making you waste time and all of that, and then at the end of it, nothing comes out of it. And this sort of takes me back to, the budget. You have to ask about things concerning money early, so that your time is not wasted. Because when you start to take a brief and all that from a client, at those points, you really cannot charge for that time. So those early parts of the engagement between you and the client must be done very efficiently, and so communication is key. You must understand climate. I'm not going to assume that all of us work in Lagos or all of us work even in Nigeria, so you must understand the context of climate and of climate change. For us in the built environment, it is more important for us than for any other groups of people to make sure that the buildings that are built under our guidance, resist the adverse climate of whatever context they find themselves in. Every project that we carried out is carried out within a community. Now, it's very important. Architects need to engage with communities. Very, very important. Because it's only when they engage with communities that they can really understand the real issues, in those communities. Maybe your village, or it may be the street where you live in the city and all of that. It's important. So you also understand the behavior from engaging with the community. You understand the behavior of people and how they interact with communities. So do you live in a kind of community where people throw trash in the gutters and all of that? If you see that kind of thing, for example, and you were involved in designing where there was going to be drainage, what would you do differently? So these are the kinds of things that, as an architect, you should be thinking about, connecting with communities, connecting with people. And back to your client, you have to connect with your client to be able to really tease out, because sometimes the client doesn't tell you everything that they want to do, but to tease out the real need, the real desire, and then of course that real budget, or wherever he's going to get his funding from, you have to have a real connection with the client. The code of conduct is something that guides all of us as architects. I will touch on it later on, but the code of conduct generally covers the way we as architects should behave. We as architects, architecture is a respectable profession and we need to keep it respectable, So the code of conduct is our guide, as it were, for how we should behave towards our clients, behave towards other stakeholders, behave in the community. And the conditions of engagement, which we have used in the past, I guide. Now people do all kinds of things. They create, things that maybe work better for them. But essentially, the conditions of engagement would list the scope of the services that you are going to provide for a client. So you can use it as the basis of the contract between you and your client. This is not a contract between you and your client. So it forms the basis, it lists the scope of work, it lists the things that are exceptions. If there are other stakeholders like engineers and all of that, and you're going to cover them within the context of that particular contract or engagement, it's all indicated there. And then of course, whatever the fees are going to be. Contracts and contract administration. For some of us, this is not our favorite, thing to do, but you cannot run a project without contracts. Now, the form of contract that we use standard, I'm going to talk about a little later, but I'll just—
It's not good. It's good for you now.
I'll just mention here that you must actually read and understand contracts and ask questions and seek help when you don't understand those contracts. It's very important. Context, I have mentioned in passing. So the context, when you design in the context of something, the context of a neighborhood, the context of regulations, the context of availability of utilities, the context of zoning, like industrial and so on. All of those things you have to understand when you engage in any project. And then confidence, at the end of the day, the architect is a salesman, so you are selling ideas to people and trying to get them to buy into those ideas. Those ideas need to be well thought out, and you have to develop the confidence to present those ideas in a way that they are acceptable to the majority of people. CAD, I won't dwell on that too much. That's computer-aided design, and sometimes CAD, computer-aided design and drafting. I want to believe that, all of us are using CAD at some level. I'll talk about that a bit later. Now, cost, I sort of spoke about when I talked about the budget, and we always, as architects, have to be aware of costs, so that means it's either you're doing it yourself or you're working closely with your quantity surveyor. We need to collaborate, so we, as architects together, we need to collaborate with each other, with this, other stakeholders in the construction industry, with foreign architects. We need to collaborate. I read an article a few years ago, many years ago actually, titled "Collaborate or Die." And in many ways, it is true. If you see and all of us here, because I think we are mostly Nigerians, you see what is going on, especially in Nigeria's music industry. You understand the power of collaboration, and it's something that we also need to move into to make ourselves stronger and to bring more capacity to the table, as it were. Architecture needs commitment and courage. Architecture is not an easy profession, but it is a very fulfilling profession. It requires commitment, to get the best, out of it. Design is where we shine as architects, or as creatives, because not all of us are designing only buildings. Many of us are delving into various things besides just buildings, and in creating design, creating drawings, your drawings must speak, your drawings must, by the time you're moving from, sketches and schematics to actual drawings, production drawings, and all of them, all of those kinds of drawings where you want to build with those drawings or create with those drawings, your drawings must leave no room for assumptions, and your specifications, of course, must leave no room for assumptions. If you run a design office and you are not the one actually doing those drawings, you must have everything that leaves your office carefully reviewed, because it's hard to sort of undo, damage to your reputation when you've sent out, half completed information, with incorrect information, which has financial implications. I knew of a case once where drawings were sent, and one entire level of the building layouts did not show any windows. And so those windows were not calculated when the schedule was being put together and when the quantity surveyor did their count in their bill of quantities. And this was not noticed until construction, So this kind of mistakes, they're not uncommon at all, and you do not want to be at the receiving end of this kind of issue, because, it can mean the difference between having a project moving ahead and the serious stalling of a project. So dabble into different things, and that's because of the nature of what we do and the way we were trained. It's possible you'll find people who studied architecture doing a wide range of things, so diversify, one of the best ways to enjoy the profession is to go into other areas of your interest that are sometimes related, sometimes not so related. It just helps you to build yourself, and to add to your portfolio, as it were. So there are architects who are good painters as well. The architects who you'll know that a lot of architects have done chair design, like Le Corbusier, even David Ajayi have designed chairs and all of that. So the diversifying and dabbling in those areas also helps you to hone your design skills in other areas. Because remember, at one time we were, the master builders. You have to learn to delegate, because this is a very diverse profession. You must learn to delegate to other people, but of course, monitor those people. Documentation is key to everything that you do. And I will talk about that a little later. Because whether we like it or not, at some point you might find yourself in an arbitration situation, even in a court case, or in some sort of dispute situation where you now have to pull up documentation to support whatever argument it is that you are putting forward. Details, mentioned roughly talking about construction. Details are very important. The little things are what make the difference between how the building looks, and how it is received. If you go around many parts of Lagos where a lot of construction is going on, you will see, for example, things like plaster that look as if they were applied, by somebody's physical hand with a lot of wobbling and things like that. All those things are things that can be corrected early on, paying attention to these details. The last thing I've mentioned on this slide is drugs. And the reason why I mentioned it is because in the construction industry, especially, with those who are engaged in some sort of manual labor on construction project sites, there seems to have been an increase in the use of drugs. And this is not, this is not unique to Nigeria. So I think that this is something somewhere where we as architects need to be concerned and see, where we can come in some way to help to reduce this menace, because, at the end of the day, sometimes you have people who are high and then they're on a scaffold and, feeling like, nothing can happen to them. And then the next thing, they fall off the scaffolding and all of that, So it's of concern to us, and we should all pay attention to that. Something I didn't mention before is desire. I don't know why I have this page twice, but for you to succeed as an architect, you have to really want it, you know, or at least want some part of it. If you don't want all of it, you have to decide which part of it you want. Your desire will help you to succeed in, you know, whatever area or areas you choose to work in. An architect has to explore. You know, I talk about that again later on, you know, when I talk about travel. You cannot sit down in your, you know, in your small environment and come up with the best designs. You must look beyond you. You must look beyond your immediate environment. It doesn't have to be very far, beyond your environment, so that you sort of enlarge your exposure. Exposure is very important for architects. And then ethics, very important. I sort of mentioned it before, and just to say that ethical principles are not flexible. Experience, you know, you must be intentional about getting different types of experience, both in the workplace and outside the workplace. So for example, there's this body called Habitat for Humanity. I think they've also moved into Africa, where, you know, many people in the construction industry especially provide housing for people who, you know, do not have houses. They physically build those houses. Architects need to be involved in experiences like that and other experiences, you know, to enlarge their tents, as it were. We must all be concerned about the environment. And in the context of wherever you live, the context of wherever you work or practice and all of that, there are different things going on with the environment. Everything that goes into and around a building project is your business, you know, so you must be involved in taking care of this environment. And we must understand to some degree engineering. So both HVAC, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, engineering, and structural engineering, we must understand to some degree. We must be able to read the drawings that come from our engineers and properly coordinate those drawings with our own drawings so that we do not have surprises when we go to project site. And you can tell when, you know, everything has, you know, the architect has finished designing his own, then the engineer comes and designs his own, and there is no coordination. You can tell when the building is built, you can tell. You know, estimating I had mentioned in passing, so I will not flog that. And you have to evolve, you know, so you must be constantly growing, you must be constantly getting better. External works, I had mentioned, you know, the environment, external works. In this case, external works has to do with our utilities, our drainage, sewage, and all of those things. You know, you have to be on top of those things. I have, you know, I can't tell you how many times, you know, I've experienced surprise. Sometimes you, say, oh, I'm going to have 10 parking spaces, and then you line up all your parking spaces and all of that. Meanwhile, your engineer has designated the area that you have marked as parking spaces. 3 or 4 of those is septic tank. Another 3 or 4 of those is, you know, is his generator base and things like that, you know. So you must be, this is your design, you must be in control of where everything is. So that means that you should know that you need all of those things and be the first to suggest where those things should be located. Embrace various points of view, embrace various ideas, you know. Doesn't mean take them all hook, line, and sinker, you know, but you know, be willing to listen to other people's points of view. Failure is very hard, but very, very important. Failure is your friend, even though it doesn't behave like a friend. failure is for learning. Now, in the professions like law, architecture, and medicine, you notice we call these practices. That's why we call it practice, because you never have reached the limit or extent of possible knowledge that you can have on any of these professions. So I wouldn't say it's experimenting as such. It is art and it is science, and it is art and it is science again. It's something you have to keep working back and forth, engaging in and thinking through and all of that. A few years ago, we had a project where the formwork failed during casting. Now, in real terms, that failure was not ours per se. It was the contractors. The contractor had not used the material that was specified by the structural engineer. And this is where an architect needs to be involved, because we know all of these things. Now, from that experience, whether the engineer says, oh, use acro props, use steel props to brace or not, and not this insect-infested bamboo that you use this to prop, whether the engineer says it or not, we make sure that, because you are leading that team, you make sure that it is done, so that there will be no bad luck story, as my father would say. And, failures in architecture, sometimes they are your design failures, so when you design and actually, when you design, when you design a building, and supervise its construction, I'm sure that, many people, at least those who have been in practice for a while, will see something that they have designed that they will do differently next time. So, for example, a headroom over a staircase, or the size of a toilet, things like that, all of those kinds of details. Somebody else may not look at it as a failure, but certainly that it can be done better. And so you need to pay attention to that. Architects must understand the various options that are open to them for negotiating remuneration. So sometimes man hours, sometimes as a percentage, sometimes a combination, and all of that. Different things work for different projects. Architects must be flexible in some areas. Architects must understand finance and financing. If necessary, even go, on some training for finance and financing. And that's because your client is depending on you for advice. Many clients will come to you up front. They have ideas, but they have not yet figured out how they will finance those ideas. If they are serious clients, they'll come up front with you, and you help them, if possible, to source possible, possible areas, possible sectors where the finance can come from. So you find, for example, and you need to be, abreast and aware. So you find, for example, that you'll find, for example, that some international bodies will be providing finance on, say, specific sectors, maybe for traders or for people doing sustainable housing, things like that. You have to be aware of those so that you can, be in a position to advise your clients what they can take advantage of. Okay, fear, I'll just say fight the fear. Construction is sometimes not for the faint-hearted. And so you should just make sure that you arm yourself with the knowledge that will enable you overcome whatever those something that is very crucial, maybe sometimes overlooked. You have to be physically fit for this profession. You know, it helps your mind, it helps your body, you know, it helps your thinking, helps you to be able to provide the best solutions that you can for your clients. Give back to community when you can, understand how government operates, and help to close gaps where you see them. And the gaps are different in different places. You know, there are gaps in different communities. This picture here shows one of our IDP camps in, I think, northeastern Nigeria. I think this was Zulum or somewhere, you know. So where we see opportunities to add value, you know, we need to add value in those opportunities. I've said this in a way, your heart has to be in the profession, you know, for you to get the best out of it. You have to take care of your health. Along with your fitness, you have to take care of your health. Without good health, there's really not much that you can do of benefit to others, you know, so you must be intentional about making sure that you maintain your health as much as it's within your power, of course. All architects need to be involved in housing. H is also for holidays. Take them when you can. You know, sometimes they come few and far between, but take them when you can. Take breaks when you can. Now more than ever, there's a lot of talk about healthy buildings. What are healthy buildings? You know, in light of what has happened in the last 2 years, 2020, 2019, 2020, 2021, you know, health in our buildings is now crucial. So ventilation is more critical than it was, even in areas that have temperate climates, fresh air, natural light, all the things that keep people healthy, both physically and mentally, are now critical. And so we must not be an exception. We must make sure that we are taking those into consideration in our projects. Humility, that's the fastest way to learn. You have to be humble because you can't know everything. You have to open your heart and mind to learning from other people. And then, of course, you know, humor always helps architects. Moving on to I, this quote, I'm not sure where it came from, is on integrity. Integrity commits itself to character over personal gain, people over things, service over power, discipline over impulse, and commitment over convenience, and the long view over the immediate. You know, and it's important to bear this in mind because our profession is a long thing, as they will say. It's not, you know, so a lot of times you won't see immediate gains, you know, in the profession. And so you always have to keep that long view ahead. You have to think about things like intellectual property, you know, guard your own intellectual property and at the same time respect the intellectual property of other people. You need to be involved in the profession. And in Nigeria, the profession is still, I won't say it's young, but in the context of, you know, our environment, it is small. Our voice is small because the number of licensed architects right now is still under 6,000 for a population of maybe 200 million, 300 million, depending on who is counting. You know, and so we need to be involved in sensitizing people. We need to be involved in improving communities. We need to be involved in every kind of way to fast track, because now we're sort of on the back foot, to fast track, the acceptance of the service that we provide. We need to give ideas to our communities, to our governments, to other stakeholders, ideas that will help improve the lot of various people. We need to try to be people of influence, and so we need to find opportunities where we can speak truth to power, because if, we can get, our stance and standing out there, then there are opportunities to improve the environment around us. Insulation is something that architects must be very conversant with, things like solar gain, U values, all those kind of, because any building that you design must be designed within the context of the climate, and the key things that you're keeping out are adverse weather conditions, and in this part of the world, keeping out heat, keeping out moisture, keeping out water, and so on. So insulation is something that architects need to be conversant with. Internship, and that's for our young people. We must be at various times the older people must have younger people under their wings. The younger people must have mentors that they are, connecting with, learning from, and so on. And the older people like me, I have reverse mentors as well. So I have a group of young people, that are constantly learning new things from. Architects must journal, so an architect at any time should have a journal for notes and sketches. Well, some architects have a different journal for notes from. I do everything inside one journal at every time. I can't count. I probably have maybe over 50 or 55 journals, and you journal everything, especially like when you speak with your client, just write down everything that you can write down, and start to sketch. That's something Mr. Nojide does a lot. While he's talking with his client, he starts to sketch already, so that right there and then he can, get feedback from the client or potential client as to whether, this is the direction the person is thinking of. So we must journal and keep those records, so, I don't throw away any of my journals. Jobs we've talked about in passing. You need clients, and you need, jobs to, actually be running a practice of some sort, or even a sole proprietorship. You need work. Joint ventures, we encourage you, when you have the opportunity, to be part of joint ventures where you are collaborating with other organizations or other people to be able to deliver work. And then the JCT, JCT is short for the Joint Contracts Tribunal. As some of you may know, this is the standard on which this is the tribunal which issues the standard form of contract which we use for most of our projects in Nigeria. It was inherited from the British, and so we've been using it, since we started practicing architecture formally. Now, it's important for every architect to be very familiar with the conditions of the standard form of contract. And one of the reasons is that the architect is the only other party mentioned in the clauses of that contract besides the owner, client, and the contractor. The architect is the only other person mentioned in that contract. I found that here, or we find that here, the quantity surveyors are usually more familiar with the standard form of contract than we are, and it shouldn't be so. We should be familiar with the standard form of contract, because at the end of the day, everything mentioned in that contract will be directed by us. Things like valuations, architects' instructions, you know, and RFIs, all of those things contained in the standard form, you know, we have to be in control of, as it were. Okay, this one is a question mark. You decide whether the architect should be a jack of all trades or not. Okay, knowledge. You know, the architect has to continually acquire knowledge. You can never know too much, you know, and that is just the nature of the profession in which we find ourselves. You know, you will go to your grave learning new things, and that is the way it should be. You must be knowledgeable, because the various stakeholders will always be expecting answers. So they will expect you to know about everything, to know about politics, to know about the cost of land in Zamfara State, to know about everything, you know. So as much as it's practicable, gain knowledge of, you know, this information. You will be the first person they ask, oh, what are the planning regulations for getting planning approval in this area of Sokoto? Things like that. They will be waiting on you. So the more information, the more you know, or if you don't know, at least know where to get the information, you know. So the more you know, the more you will be trusted as an architect. And, you know, once you are trusted as an architect, it's easier to grow. KPIs. KPI is short for key performance indicators. Now, in every firm, or even as an individual, your key performance indicators are those things that you want to track. So for example, you know, in your firm, you want to know how much money you earned within a time frame, how many hours you put in to earn that amount of money, how much you had to pay out to be able to earn that, that's how much you had to pay out in terms of overhead, salaries, etc., to earn that kind of money. You know, where are the most of your jobs coming from? What sectors are most of your work coming from? You know, where are your clients getting information about you? All of those things, you know, you can have as key performance indicators, which you identify. And when you identify them, so things like tracking money and expenditure, you know, and what you are doing to get that money, you know, and who are the people who are, you know, key to getting that money. So like sometimes you'll be tracking your staff hours, how many hours are they spending on those particular projects. You know, once you identify them, you monitor them, and then you should review them. These kinds of monitoring and tracking of things help you to make decisions as an organization, and it's very important. You know, you cannot earn your stripes if, for example, somebody asks you, oh, how much money did your firm earn last year, 2021? You should have that number at your fingertips and all of that. You know, auditors will come to your office when you reach that level, and those are the kinds of questions that they will expect you to answer. L is for looks. You decide how important those are, how you dress, how you present yourself to people. L is for leadership. And we have traditionally, grown to believe that we are the leaders in the construction industry. How do you look at that role? How do you look at that responsibility? Because it's a responsibility. And how do you act out that responsibility? Do you think it is a role that you deserve? Are you living up to the expectations of that role? Learning is, like I said before, is endless. Another thing that architects have to be familiar with is land use. So apart from the design regulations, zoning regulations, etc., for whatever areas you'll be designing. Nigeria's Land Use Act is something that every architect should be familiar with. I will have a little information on that in my notes so that I do not dwell too much on that. But the Land Use Act, because all over Nigeria, the way that land changes hands is different. So it's important that people architects are in a position to advise their clients, because before you start designing on a plot of land, you have to know first of all whether the person you're designing for actually has title to that land. So those are the kinds of things that you must be knowledgeable about. Landscaping, we must know about that. Levels, I will talk about this, because it's important. Very often, we as architects design buildings without really thinking too much about the context of the outside. And, a lot of times the errors do not become, or should I say the oversights, because sometimes they're not errors, it's just oversights. You overlook the fact that, you are building and you have not said how, because this, if you have a civil engineer on a project, they should tell you, okay, this is the level here for us to get to drainage, we have to have the level here at this level and then lower at this level and so on towards the drainage. Now, in smaller projects, you may not have, the luxury of a civil engineer who will help you to work out this drainage. So it's something you should understand. You should understand building levels. You should understand light levels. You should understand lighting levels. You should understand sound levels, So you need to understand all of this, especially for smaller projects. And if you don't understand, know where to get the information from. Legacy is, what you leave behind for those who are coming. Life cycle is sort of connected to, sustainability and all of that. And in this day and age, where now we don't have that much land or water where we can be throwing things we don't want anymore into, we have to think about the life cycle of a building. So if you design with a certain material, for example, and the building reaches, the end of life, as it were, if the building is demolished, what will the demolished parts of the building be used for? What can they be used for? Those are some of the things that you also want to think about. Little things, details, I mentioned before. Now, architect as master builder, sometimes, it is important for you to have the mindset of a master builder, and not because you are the one going to do everything, but because you have to always be in a position to ask the right questions from the right people. So if you see your MEP engineer's drawings, and he has taken like 1.2 meters to put everything for his duct work, and you have to ask why. And if it is not possible for this, because if it's not possible for this to be smart, because if you make an assumption and design a building that is, floor to ceiling 3 meters or 3.2 meters, and he takes 1.2, that's already your door height gone, So you have to think like a master builder, as if you are responsible for every aspect of the building, for all the materials that are going to be used on the project, for the methods of construction. You have to be thinking ahead. So we had a project in Abuja, for example, where we needed 5 cranes for the project. Now, one of those 5 cranes, of course, we just drew, and said, we did the layout, with the contractor for the 5 cranes. Now, the project was or adjoins another project under construction that had stalled. Now, as long as that project was stalled, as long as that project was stalled, we were fine. But when, it became apparent that they were going to restart, then we had a problem. Because for those who know, establishing a crane on a project, especially this one was a 17-story project, and all of that, is not a small thing. The foundation that goes in and all of that, the weights that have to be put in there and all of that, So those are the kinds of things that sometimes only experience will teach you, that, when you're designing, also think about the logistics, where are materials going to be stored, where is staff going to eat, all of those things have to be thought about. So in thinking about your building, you can design, but think about, okay, your structure, for example, where are these materials going to come from? How are they going to be delivered to the site? What's the space between you and the next person? How are you even going to install these things at maybe 4 or 5 levels above the ground floor level? All of those things you have to be thinking about, as if you are the one physically going to build. You have to understand money. You have to understand how money works. You have to understand how banking works, how loans and stocks, everything to do with money you have to understand. You have to understand materials, and right now there are so many building materials out there. You have to understand, what you want in your building, what materials solve, whatever you want in your building, and know where to get those materials and all of that. If you do not have a broad understanding of things like materials and all of that, you will always be using the same thing every time. You'll be using vitrified tiles, texcoat paint, and you will end up with unexciting buildings. You have to know what you can experiment with, know what is tested, and be involved in getting information on these different materials and components that are available. In exploring your design, you will want to be familiar with using models, no matter what level of your experience, whether you are fresh out of school or you have 50 years experience. Models will always help you to think through your projects and possible solutions. You will at some point be involved in some master planning, and you have to understand how to do that correctly, sometimes working with other stakeholders. Architects need networks. This one here is my network. As has been mentioned, I'm an avid cyclist, and this is one of my primary networks. The networks are for various reasons, apart from socializing and meeting people who can possibly give you work. It also gives you, like with our cycling community, for example, we advocate for different things. For example, we advocate for, provision for, pathways for non-motorized transport. So, to allow there to be proper pavements for people to walk and cycle on and those kinds of things. So networks are important. Networks are important for building, yourself up as an architect. And nature will be one of your greatest allies, not just as a source of inspiration, but for places of peace, for high quality thinking. Many architects are inspired by nature in their design. So if you taken up the habit, if you've not taken up the habit of sketching, you might want to, take up the habit of sketching and start with nature, because a lot of great ideas come from around us in nature. And I've mentioned before about journaling, you need to take a lot of notes, very, very important. Here in our office, we find ourselves, we've had a discussion, taken notes somewhere, and then at some point you have to refer to those notes to remind the client or the other stakeholders about some decisions that have been made. If for some reason, maybe you weren't taking minutes of meetings and all of that, it was an informal meeting, those notes will become important, and it's important, critical that you sort of are organized and intentional about, how you organize your notes and your sketches, do this often. And now there are a lot of digital tools that you can use for your note taking, so this takes things to a very interesting level. Now I can carry my code, well, if I could carry my 50 or 60 notebooks with me, in one device. Observation, we can't say that enough. And this is where, the beauty of things like travel and exploring come in. Observation is not always, observation is what we do when we, say we are supervising buildings, how they're being constructed and all of that. But when we observe, we see things, look for things that are working, at least I do. So in the city of Lagos, where I work primarily, I keep looking at the buildings that are being built. And I see the ones that start responding negatively to moisture and water penetration very quickly, very shortly after they've been constructed. And you see the mistakes that have been made. And that's the purpose of observation, to see, okay, what could be done differently to make sure that we do not have crack lines all over our walls, moisture all over, moisture lines all over our walls, and damage walls, especially, where our office is, where we are not too far from the Atlantic Ocean. The effects can be quite severe. We need to take advantage of opportunities for new work. And sometimes we have to create those opportunities for new work. And as most of you know, opportunities do not always present themselves as opportunities. Sometimes, they present themselves as problems, and sometimes those problems are opportunities. And then I mentioned about the ordinary, and the reason why is because, when you design anywhere in the world, over 70–80% of the buildings that are built are for residential use, and that's for the ordinary people, So there has to be a lot of investment of time and knowledge into understanding how to make these better for people. These residential spaces, these communities, how to make them better for people. I've talked about play already, so I won't flog it, but everybody needs every architect needs some release, that you need to explore hobbies outside of your core work, because sometimes, depending on how busy you are, sometimes you have to take, yourself away from, your core work, do something else, and then come back, because our work can get quite intense. Practical completion is the point that, most projects will reach before final completion. From experience, I see that, for various reasons, and that has to do with things like ending the defects liability period properly and all of that. Practical completion seems to be the point where many projects end. Every architect will do well to make sure that, their projects are properly documented. When they reach practical completion, they actually issue a practical completion certificate. So you can say, yes, this project reached practical completion. If you reach final completion, make sure that you issue a final completion certificate. And one of the reasons why I mentioned this is because many times, because of sometimes the euphoria, or maybe the client is on everybody's neck, oh yeah, everybody come and get out of the building, or maybe some things haven't been done correctly. And so the client has said, please, I just want to move in. I'm going to correct this myself. I'm going to do this. And, because of, all of that may be going on, no practical completion certificate is issued. And it's important, it's important because, then you can say on your records, oh, we have X number of projects that have reached practical completion. Payments, getting paid is difficult in every environment. In our environment, it's particularly difficult. Whether it's private clients or corporate clients or government, and so you have to, in planning your practice, your sole proprietorship, your business and all of that, you have to bear all of this in mind and plan for it, know what to expect, know what you can promise. So for example, we have organizations that have, say, 45-day payment cycle. So you do the work, complete the work, they have to approve that the work is to their satisfaction before they now say, okay, we start counting the 45 days. Yeah, so you have to, you have to bear all of that in mind in your planning, so that the people that you have to pay, people that you owe money, can be advised accordingly. In architecture, we have partnerships. Partnerships are very important. I've noticed from a few partnerships, I won't mention names, but partnerships very often, the partnerships that work well usually have partners that bring very different strengths to the table. So you have partnerships where one partner is outgoing, goes out to meet people, knows how to get work in, and so on. And then the other partner, I'm not talking about a partnership that has two people, for example. And then the other partner, knows how to get the work done, knows how to, has, good design skills, and those kinds of things, knows how to encourage people to get the work done and all of that. That's like a partnership made in heaven. And when you are going to establish a partnership or change partnership or whatever you need to do, you should embrace differences, and the different strengths that different people bring to the table. Never be far away from your pens and pencil, and understand that people are very important. So people in your employment can make or break you, so if you don't have the right people in your employment, or you don't partner with the right people, you want to know that early and, sort that out early, talk about it if you need to and all of that. But it's very important that you are very careful about the people that you employ or the people that you partner with. I already talked about practice a bit. Policy, very important. And I'm now talking about, the things that you don't have control over. So if government policies change, you don't have control over that, but you must always be abreast of those changes. If regulations change, whether in the building industry or maybe at the ports with customs, all those things are our business, and we have to be conversant, at least to some level. We have to know what's going on. It will also help us to plan, also help us to advise our clients. Professional indemnity insurance is the kind of insurance that is required of architects partnerships. And I believe, other, professionals like engineering also need professional indemnity. And what this does essentially, it's insurance that covers you if, let's say, your design error has caused problems on a project or costs overruns and that kind of thing. This professional indemnity is intended to cover you. Some organizations, especially corporates, will require this for you to be covered, and they will tell you, what amount or level to cover yourself, so that they have some comfort before they give you the project. Quality, and in an environment like ours, quality is more and more difficult to achieve. For those who are older or those who have been interested in history in Nigeria, you have seen the quality of craftsmanship in the design and construction of projects, but that is unfortunately no longer the case. And sometimes people just don't have the time. And on the plus side, there are a lot more options available on site. So for example, if we're doing POP, all that we do with POP, and all of that, you can have cornices that are pre-made, not somebody sitting down and carving something and that kind of thing. Now, you can have the best design in the world, but if the quality of the construction is poor, shoddy, it makes your work look bad. Now, if you are the one overseeing this and all of that, you have to insist. You have to insist on the quality that is acceptable to you. Don't, as they say in Nigeria, they say, that we should manage it, or the one that we often hear, you have block work, you yourself can see without putting a plumb line that the walls are not straight. They say, oh, when we are plastering it, it will cover all of that. And of course, with experience, that, that doesn't happen. The problems will actually be worsened by the plaster. I had a project in Takwa Bay where, we were called in late. We had designed the project, and then they said, oh, they're going to supervise the building by themselves. And then they called us, of course, when the site ran into problems, and by the time they finished this supposed corrective plastering, one side had plastering that was almost 150 mm thick, So to avoid those kinds of problems, it may be painful and it will be expensive to the clients. You have to insist. Everybody will adjust, as they say. Everybody will get used to it. Everybody will adjust. You have to insist, so that your work stands out, and the clients will thank you at the end of the day. Maybe not when they're breaking things down at the beginning. You have to understand quantities, basic quantities, you have to know how to do basic, taking off, so that you can give your clients quick answers. You have to ask questions, plenty of questions, anything you're not sure of, ask questions, sometimes, and most of us have been through this, you see something is not quite right, but you don't say anything about it, and then if you're lucky, somebody else asks what is on your mind, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. What's the worst that can happen, and then also know how to deal with quotes, as in quotations from people, know how to read those quotations, and align them with either what's in your drawings or what's in the bill of quantities, if there is a bill of quantities and all of that. And very importantly, see if it, aligns with your design intent, because sometimes there's a quote, and then if you don't read it closely, you will see that part of your design intent has not been captured. You have to read, you have to read a lot of things. I talked already about reading boring stuff like contracts. The alternative to reading contracts is to be buried by the consequences of not doing so. And I can't say that enough. You must understand your contracts. When you use contracts, you must understand them inside out for that specific project. You must understand them inside out. Not every contract is the same. If it's done properly, contracts are tailored to specific projects, to specific situations. And so you must understand them and understand the implications of the clauses, implications of changes, and the responsibilities of all the parties to the contract. You must be abreast of regulations, zoning regulations, building regulations, planning regulations. You must be abreast of them, at all times. Very importantly, you must keep records. And for us in our office, it's a bit of a pain in the neck because we have records going, for several years, and sometimes, maybe if you haven't gotten around to it, you need to scan these records and all of that, but you can't just throw them away. You need to keep records because sometimes the request for their use or the disputes that will require that their use or referred to will not come even in 5 years or 6 years. It will be much later. And some of these records might be like as-built drawings, where, and this is very important, as-built drawings where in the course of construction, drawings were changed and all of that. You must make sure that for your projects, you have your own copies of as-built drawings, both architectural and the engineering drawing. You must have records of how they were actually built. Because I'll tell you, even 3 weeks ago, a client asked me for as-built drawings for a project we completed in 2014, so it's critical. You must be very good at writing reports, can't say that enough. You must make sure that people you work with, your organization, are good at writing reports. You must, if it's not your thing, it's a skill that you need to hone, because reports do plenty of things. Reports will be used in court. Reports will communicate to your clients organizations. Reports will save you from a lot of trouble, if these are documented and properly kept and sent out, just like letters as well, because sometimes, so for example, there was a project some years ago where the building collapsed. This wasn't our project, but the contractor who did the project was called to question. The building collapsed, but what had happened was that there was an existing building, on the project site before, and the contractor had said, look, we need to dig and create a new foundation for this new building that we are doing. We don't know how long this has been here. We don't know what type of foundation. And the client said that they should go ahead, that they were sure that the foundation was fine. So he asked for this to be put in writing, and that's what saved him. So these records are important, reports are important. Architects must understand recycling, and we know what recycling is. At some point, because here in Lagos, for example, a lot of recycled materials are generated. At some point, we are going to, be part of those who, have a say in how these recycled materials are used and where they can be used, say in projects where the budgets are low and things like that. Sketch often, understand structures. The structure on the top is the Azerbaijan Cultural Center designed by Zaha Hadid. I always say that I like naked buildings, and this, is an example of a naked building, because this is where you see everything, that is now going to be covered up later on by finishing, by ceilings and all of that. But this is where you know whether the building is going to work or not. You see where the pipes are going, you see where the ducts are going and all of that. And it's important for you to understand this. the architect is a solution provider, and you always have to bear that in mind. You are providing a service, you know, you must look at everything as something where you provide the best solution for your client or for the organization, you know, as the case may be. Architects must have, you know, if there was one type of software besides design and visualization software that I think is critical to the architect, I would say is a spreadsheet software. There are a few out there. The master of them is Microsoft Excel. Architects should have more than just a working knowledge of Microsoft Excel or any other spreadsheet software that you use. Very, very important for creating a very wide range of documents, such as specifications, you know. So the best architects, like I mentioned before when I spoke about materials, you understand and are conversant with a wide range of building materials. And so you write better specifications and all of that. You know, we should not leave our specification writing to quantity surveyors. I'll leave that alone, you know, because it's sometimes touchable. That's what happens, you know, and that's something that we need to correct. In our organizations, we need to create standards, you know, so that we work more effectively, more efficiently, you know, and we produce work that looks like it came out of our office every time. Develop your own style, you know. Architects must understand sustainability. And in building information modeling, which I had mentioned earlier, you know, sustainability is now one of the dimensions of you know, building information modeling, which I will talk about a little later. We must understand sustainability, but very importantly, we must understand what sustainability means in our own context, in our own environment. Sustainability in the US or in Australia is different from here. What should be our focus? You know, of course, things like energy efficiency is global, you know, but there are also other things when it comes to passive design, you know, and the materials we use for our buildings and all of that. What is sustainable here may not be sustainable somewhere else. So we must understand what self-sustainability means for us. Safety and security, very important, you know. So when we design, of course, here, we always design plenty of burglar proofs and all of that, you know, and it's something worth thinking more about, you know, are those the solutions? Are there better solutions? Because burglar proofing can become a trap if there's fire. So those things you have to think about in design. Social media, architects should learn to leverage social media for learning, social media for, you know, educating other people, talking about your work and that kind of thing. Time is limited. You know, when you start to get busy, you know, as an architect, as a practice and all of that, you find yourself on maybe specific projects, you know, attending lots of meetings and that kind of thing. It's very critical that you try always to be respectful of time and to manage your time and your energy. Or at least you should try. Don't think that because you are the architect, everyone should wait for you. You should, you know, be very considerate, you know, when it comes to time. Architects need to travel across your city, travel across your states, travel across the country, continent, across the world if you can. You know, travel, go to other places, open your eyes, observe, explore, and all that. Travel is critical for any architect who is going to have any kind of impact, critical. Oh, and you're one of my favorites. The architects, there are a lot of tools out there that architects can use. In the 90s, when we started using CAD, we just had a few tools, AutoCAD, and then we had 3D Studio, then and that kind of thing. But now there are so many tools out there, available for architects to use. Choose your tools and learn to use them properly, learn to use them in depth, so that you can make the most of, get the best advantage of them. Leverage technology in everything that you're doing. I had talked about standards before. Templates are standards that you use. So templates for your drawings, templates for your letters, your reports, and all that. Create those standards so that you have a consistent look to the outside world. Your thinking, the quality of your thinking will determine the quality of the projects and project solutions that you provide. Your thinking is very important to everything that you're going to do and be as an architect. And then the thing that maybe some of us, most of us, all of us don't like to talk about anywhere in the world, taxes. Pay your taxes. I don't like, especially in our environment where sometimes you're not sure what is being done with your taxes. It's important to pay your taxes, because not paying your taxes, the necessary taxes, not auditing your accounts, that's having somebody come and audit and do your, not maintaining the necessary insurances like professional indemnity and so on, excludes you from certain types and levels of work. So that's where it becomes critical. So you'll be excluded from certain types of work, maybe government work, that kind of thing. So that's it on taxes. Use your knowledge. All the knowledge that you acquire, use it. Get understanding, of every piece of information that you get. Get understanding of how things work. Provide value, as an architect, and this is critical because, most people do not use architects, and it's not unique to us as Nigerians. Everywhere in the world, people think, oh, they can do it themselves. They just call a contractor to do this and do. You must provide value. You have to, this is where imagination comes in. You have to provide something that nobody else will be able to provide, for people to be able to come to you and say, yes, I want to use an architect for this project and all of that. You have to understand, things like valuations. Now, if you are running a proper project with a standard contract and all of that, you would have come across valuation. But this essentially, for the young people now, this essentially is, putting a value to the quantum of work that has been done in a particular time. And it's something that you need to be conversant with. Now, so vernacular, and I'm talking in terms of vernacular architecture. Now, the picture that you see here, for those who watched the Black Panther, this is a picture of the famous, mythical Wakanda, the city, Wakanda. Now, a lot of it, if you look in, is based on various types of vernacular architecture in various parts of Africa. I'll urge everyone to follow the, Ajayi's visual sketchbook on Instagram. He talks a lot about vernacular architecture in different parts of Africa, everywhere, he's been everywhere, taken photographs and done in-depth research. It's important for us to pay attention to vernacular architecture in order to create better contemporary architecture. I can't say this enough, because inside vernacular architecture is already inbuilt sustainability. People who build, in communities with local materials from within meters of that, materials got from within meters of that environment, so that is purely what sustainable architecture is about, and all of us need to pay attention to it. We need to be vigilant, you know. So this vigilance has to do with observation, being vigilant about, you know, changes that people are trying to make. Changes that people will make that may be to our detriment, the detriment of the profession. We need to be vigilant about all this. You need to have a voice, you know, and you need to use you need to be involved, you need to use your voice, you know, not just for your own good, but the betterment of the communities and societies in which you find yourself. You must be clear about what you want to see happen in your professional life and the impact this will have on the world around you. That's the power of vision. You know, tie yourself to a vision that speaks to your purpose, not to your purse. And this is very important. When I joined ATO Architects, I joined ATO Architects in 1994. I didn't know anybody there, but I knew somebody who knew Mr. Onojide. And I went there without an appointment. You know, I just walked in there. I was looking for a job. I had applied to another firm. Now, the other firm that I applied to had already made me an offer. And then ATO made me an offer that was lower than the other offer, you know, but from speaking to him, I could see immediately that, you know, I knew where he was going with his vision. At that time, the firm was under 6 years old. It was a young firm, you know. I knew where it was going, and it aligned with my own personal vision, you know, because, you know, I've always, you know, known that I wanted to leverage technology in the work that I do. You know, so I accepted. I mean, well, you know, I mean, now in retrospect, the difference was like 500 naira at the time, you know, but it was a big deal, you know, and I accepted to take less, you know, for what I thought would work better for me. And I think that it has paid off. Visualization, you know, every architect, you know, must take advantage of the various visualization packages that are out there. You know, no point naming them. There are plenty of packages out there, you know, available for architects to experiment with. Now, what we see, a lot of young architects are able to use the visualization software. Many of the older architects are not using them, and I think it is a missed opportunity. You know, I think that all architects, regardless of your age or level of experience, should have some working knowledge of visualization in today's context, you know, because we've gone beyond simply rendering and animation. In the 90s, when I joined ATO Architects, we were already doing some rendering with 3D Studio, and we're doing some animation with 3D Studio. You know, so now we're talking about virtual reality, we're talking about augmented reality, we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about robotics, you know. So all of us need to know what's going on in that space, you know, so that we can take advantage of it for our clients and then, you know, educate them, you know, in a way that they will appreciate and understand better. So water, all I will say about water is, you know, I mean, water is good, it's part of the landscape and all of that, but also, you know, we are always working to make sure that our buildings are watertight, our sites are well drained, and you must, you know, do your work such that these key goals are attained in every project that you have. There's nothing worse than having a roof that is leaking, even if you've designed it correctly and you know, it had been built by somebody and all of that, and it starts leaking. It's you they will ask first, you know, like you did something, you know, to make the roof leak and all of that, you know. So we must think of the windows, the way the windows are installed, doors, external doors are installed, everything, every possible place where water can infiltrate a building. We must be mindful of how we design. I already talked about writing and keeping records. We must also document our stories, for posterity, very important, and then we must watch various trends. Now, X for X-ray vision. I'd sort of mentioned this before. We must, as architects, we must understand, again, that word I use, naked buildings. Understand the skeleton of your building as you design and the impact of the structural frame and all the services on how your building is going to look inside and outside. If your services engineer, MEP engineer, basically is going to ask for a certain amount of ceiling space, make sure that you have factored that into your own design. So there has to be a proper back and forth and synchronization of your building with your drawings, with the structural engineers drawing, with the services engineers drawings and all of that, so that you don't have any surprises and all of that. Because usually a client will not appreciate this, and depending if your services engineer is using a different software from you, sometimes what is going to have significant impact on your drawing will just be looking like lines. You just draw lines, 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 and you will not understand the impact of those lines unless you understand the way he's labeled them and all. It's very rare now to see MEP engineers who will actually draw dots like this drawing I have here, who will actually draw dots in 3 dimensions, and you see exactly how they're going to fall, exactly where they change size, exactly where they exhaust and all. It's rare to have that, So you have to understand how to read, structural drawings. You have to understand how to read MEP drawings and know exactly how they impact your work. In our office here, we've had situations where we've actually modeled the ducts and pipes ourselves just to save us the stress, because the engineers were not using the software we were using. So we did the modeling of all of this ourselves and then knew exactly what the impact of these pipes and ducts were on our system and the structural system as well. Y is for young people and younger people. They need to be carried along. Very important, because we all know how we were when we were younger. Sometimes, most people wait for opportunities to work on projects and all of that. Very few will actually come and say, oh, I want to be part of this project and all of that. When I always talk about when I did the NIA exams the first time, because I didn't pass it the first time. When I didn't pass the exams the first time, I knew why I didn't pass. And it was because I had been, sort of office bound and doing, a lot of work on drawings and all of that. I hadn't followed anybody to site much, not much and all of that. Now at the time, our office had a project in Abuja. And I told our principal at the time that, I wanted to start going to Abuja with the chief architect at the time. And I was fortunate. They allowed me. And, so that was when, I sort of started, understanding exactly what it was I was doing, because before that I'd been, essentially just doing drawings and all, but now I had, understood better the relationship between drawings and, exactly what was going on site, so we must carry young people along and give them opportunities, give them exposure, so that they understand how buildings are put together. So finally, lastly, we talk about Z. I had mentioned when I was talking about BIM, so Z, for those who used AutoCAD in the early days, and it's still the same now. You still use AutoCAD. You know that you draw in the X, the Y, and the Z direction, so that's why, I'm talking about Z here. So Z for me here represents the third dimension, which is, drawing in 3-dimension X, Y, and Z. Now, if you are using building information modeling, which is what you have in Revit, ArchiCAD, and so on, they've gone beyond 3D. So we have 3-dimensional drawing. What is now called 4D now incorporates time. So timelines, schedules, duration of projects, and all of that are all, monitored in this, what is called 4D. By 5D, we're talking about money, we're talking about cost estimates, we're talking about budgets, budget analysis. In 6D, we're talking about sustainability, the self-sustainability of our buildings. We're talking about energy efficiency. And in the 7th dimension, now the building is, in the hands of the owners, and in the hands of the users. So we're talking about facility management, information, and all of that, So, I will conclude by, talking about, okay, Generation Z is, the next coming generation. Z is also for zebra, which I started talking about at the beginning, and our stripes, which are never ending. We have to learn to think, to design, to sketch in 3 dimensions. We have to understand all these other dimensions of drawing. And also, COVID has given us Zoom. We have to be familiar with that and then connecting with the rest of the world. And so that concludes my talk. Thank you all for listening.
Much. Wow, a round of applause for Architect Ekaete Fuja. Awesome. Presentation, wonderful. Kudos to the Diva.
An awesome presentation.
Limited. Wonderful.
Great presentation.
Quite insightful. This is quite insightful. Thank you so much, Architect Ekaete Basi Fuja. Awesome. I can't thank you enough.
Very wonderful.
Please let's just mute our mics. Thank you so much. The webinar is still on. Thank you so much. Thank you, Architect Ekaete Fuja. We really appreciate the depth presentation, the excellent delivery, the thoroughness, the accuracy in which you delivered. Awesome. Yes, you can just go on in the chat box and use your electronic clap instead of unmuting your mic. Yes, there's so much accolades going on in there, Architect Ekaete Fuja. Please, Architect Ekaete Fuja, I don't know if it's deliberate. We would like to see your face. Kindly start your video. I'm sure the audience would like to see your face, Architect Ekaete, if you may, if it's okay with you. Thank you so much. Then you can, wow, I don't know where to start from. This is awesome. Our notes are full here. If we start all over again to go about recapping this intriguing and captivating lecture, we will spend another 2 hours, because you actually spend 2 hours, 45 minutes to do the delivery and your man's delivery on this lecture. Thank you so much, Architect Ekaete Fuja. On behalf of Anchor, we appreciate you. We thank you so much. We are glad you honor this invite to bring knowledge to the fore, to enhance capacity, professional capacity development, to show us the path to a sustainable way of earning our stripes as architects. It's quite enriching. I want to tell you, for free, please, if you want to relive this experience, kindly please visit our YouTube channel, Anchor Architects. That is where you have rich resources of this material uploaded. You can also download it into and have it archived in your e-library, so you can take out time on your own, at your own leisure. I mean, sit back, relax with a cup of coffee, freshly brewed coffee. Sit back, relax, take notes, go through it over again, run it through your mind, and get the best of it, because this is what you call the A to Z of earning your stripes as an architect without gainsaying. This is actually the sum total of how we can earn our stripes as professional architects, as architects and professionals in the built industry. Once again, I want to thank you. At this point in time, we have the Q&A session, and we are going to just take very few because our time is fast spent. And I have a few hands here. Let me just mute the mic here. We have some hands up here. I would request that Sajiru Ado Abdullahi, that's the first person, I ask you to unmute your mic and briefly articulate either your comments or your observation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Your background is noisy, please. Your background is noisy. I have to mute you. Your background is noisy. I have to mute you. Sorry. Stephen, please, what of Stephen Wagwe? Your hands are raised up, please.
Yes, Stephen.
I've requested you unmute your mic. Yeah, go ahead. Make it brief. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
And I must thank Architect Fuja for an excellent presentation, detailed to its core. And this is what we expect. It has really refreshed our memory about our function and our duties as architects. But the aspect I want to point out here is our relationship with our clients. We find out that in the course of collecting briefs, some of our clients are very, very knowledgeable in what they want, and it is not out of place. Hello? And it's not out of place.
Go on, please.
It's not out of place for your clients to actually educate you on what they actually want, in as much as you still go back and prepare a proper brief and talk to your clients. So that because what I found out is that most
Architect Steven, please hold on, please. Let me mute everybody, then I'll ask you to unmute again, please. There's interference. Okay, Architect Steven, you can go on. I've requested you unmute yourself now.
Okay. So what we find out is in the course of the design process, some bad designs, some of us actually end up producing bad designs because probably we don't understand the brief of the client, or we did not carry our clients along. Even if it takes a whole lot of days for you to actually understand what your client wants, it's best you get a proper brief from your client, understand your client so that it doesn't lead to projects cost overrun or bad designs at the end of the day. So I want to implore us that in collecting the brief from the clients, actually ask your clients, because most of our clients are well traveled. And in these days of internet, they can always go back to the internet to say, this is what they want, this is what they want. So you get a detailed brief from your client before engaging in that design, so that at the end of the day, we have a beautiful and habitable environment for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, you can mute your mic and lower your hands now. Thank you for that input. I believe that was an input. Okay, at this point in time, while the Q&A session is going, we are going to, while our guest speaker is still on, we're going to post the link to earn your Archon CPD point now. So kindly look into the chat box, and we'll furnish you with a link for you to earn your CPD point. It's a Google form where you fill your details and to earn your Archon CPD point for this webinar in particular, this specifically for this webinar. Okay, I have Oladimeji. Oops, sorry. I have Oladimeji. It keeps going off. I have Oladimeji Oyewole. Please kindly unmute. I've requested you unmute. You want to make a contribution. Like I said, the Akon CPD link, to end your Akon CPD point, the link is being posted in the chat. Please do well to deploy the use of that link to fill your details so that you can be on the spreadsheet that will capture those who have attended this webinar. Thank you. Architect Oyewole, please. You could go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'd like to appreciate the presenter, Architect Kaite. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. I just want to point out one or two things from what she said. She mentioned some things about health and safety, and I think it's very, very important, especially we as architects and construction workers. We need to know about CPR, how to administer CPR to some that just hits on site or at work, you know, before an ambulance comes. And she also mentioned about traveling. It would have been nice if Anchor or NIO or whatever organize a facility to Dubai or to the present ongoing Expo 2020 at Dubai. Most of these things that she's showing us, we can see them firsthand, because Dubai is somewhere we can easily get visas to without going through rigors that people want to get visas to go into the UK or the US. And then she also mentioned internship for our younger ones. But I really think that there could be what we call post-qualification internship, where we can, where someone that has qualified for 5-10 years can go to a firm
make these
like
comments. Okay.
Like Zaha Hadid or a firm in London and visit them for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, see how they do things, see how some constructions come together. And, you know, I think it's something we too can work as an organization and work together and collaborate with all these firms, and it will lead to further future better collaborations. That's just my contribution.
Thank you very much, Architect Oladimeji Oyewole, for chipping in that. Well, I think we after this webinar, do make contact. Let's make contact. Let's touch base and talk about that, because that is what Anchor is all about: professional capacity development, and also to enrich our system thinking in how we deploy the use of tools, application, the knowledge at our disposal. And that's what you see, that we are in service to provide to the architect in Nigeria to enhance and enrich our practice as professionals in Nigeria. So thank you very much for that contribution. We at Anchor, we are about service, we are about service and growth mindset. We are about delivering the best professional knowledge that will enhance and improve and give a sustainable practice for the architect and bring us to that global space where we can earn our stripes as global architects that we ought to be. Thank you so much. So I guess we'll see after this webinar. We'll talk after this webinar. Okay, let me just take 1 or 2 more people. I see GD04 Akube. GD04 Akube, I've asked you to unmute your mic and you can please speak. Articulate.
Hi,
briefly.
good evening.
Good evening.
All right, I'm sure you can hear me now.
We can hear you. Please go ahead. Thank you.
All right. Everybody has mentioned quite a splendid one, the presentation, and Kaite, congratulations on this. While listening to this, I know that a lot of older architects, if they had some bit of patience to take from A to Z, I think personally I came in about while they were doing L or something of that sort. So while listening to this context, something came up to my mind in the likes of academics, in the likes of learning, you know. Ekaite's presentation may not be very
Architect
worthwhile.
Gideon, hold on, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
I'm going to have to mute everybody, and I'll ask you to unmute. There's
All right.
interference. Please, let me just. Okay. Okay, Architect Gideon, please, you can unmute yourself, please.
I hope you can hear me now, host.
Yeah, loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Right. So they are still interfering. No, I don't know who they are.
I've taken care of that.
Okay.
Don't worry. You go ahead, please.
Okay, so I was just reflecting. I was reflecting while Kaite was speaking.
Yeah.
Yes, and reflecting on the academics of this particular presentation. You know, in as much as older architects may not find so much content or so much interest in such presentations, this particular value that she delivered today may have something for a lot of our growing architects, for those in the associate cadre, for those that are even student architects, because they may not be in this forum and they missed out in all of this. So I was hoping there was a way Kaite's speech can be administered in such a way that it could be presented in the form of a paper or journal. Kaite, this is a challenge for you, so that you can take it across board. Student architects, from people like us who are in academics, we can make them go to Akon, get such documents, and help them in understanding the A to Z of the practice. I think that's just my major contribution to this. Thank you.
Architect Gideon, I'm sure you were with me when I said earlier, you can actually quickly relieve this session by going to Anchor YouTube channel. The video is there. You can actually even download the video. There are ways you can download the video on YouTube. There are other videos there on the Anchor Architects YouTube, whereby it's open to all. You can go there, download the videos, especially this one and the others. We have very rich resource of videos on our YouTube channel. So you can go there, download the videos, listen to the videos, actually relive this experience. And please, when you are there, kindly like and subscribe our channel. We are growing it to be one that is going to be a reputable source of information, requisite information resource for the architects and the professional at large. Thank you very much for that contribution. While we are at it, please look at the chat box. For those who are just joining, please look into the chat box. The Akon CPD, to earn your Akon CPD link has been posted there. Please, Francis, you could just repost it again because there are so many chats going on there. And good evening. This is from Chinozo. Good evening, fellow professionals. We have gained knowledge through this presentation made by architect Ekaite Basifuja today, and we are refreshed. Yeah, thank you very much. Great delivery. Thank you. Architect Ekaite, there's so much accolades going on there. Thank you. Appreciation. It was a brilliant, wonderful presentation that is there. So actually the link has been reposted. So please kindly make good use of the chat box to earn your CPD point, Akon CPD point for this particular webinar. It's right there, it's posted right there. So let's take a couple of more contributions or questions. I'm sure we don't have questions because the presentation was quite explicit. It was so very easy to absorb, easy to follow, easy to understand. We have, let me see, there's Isaac Obajemu. Isaac Obajemu, I've asked you to unmute your mic. You can chip in your contribution or question.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Hello, everyone. Hello, can you hear me?
Please go on.
Oh, okay.
We can hear you.
Once again, I want to appreciate the presenter today, though I had network issues, so I couldn't cope with A to Z. But I started it first and later joined. My questions are these. The U has a Ubuntu. She didn't explain that. Then the Z, I want to know maybe the 4D and the 5D, can we assume both to be project management being incorporated into architecture? Do you get the question?
Please, could you retreat on that again, so that
Okay,
I'll just, this question is for you, please. Yes.
Okay, Z now, the Z is on the screen. There's the 4D talks about the time, timeline, schedule, and duration. While the 5D talks about the money, cost estimation, budget analysis. And the core of project management is quality, time, cost. Are you getting me? So my question is this: does it mean that 4D and 5D is technically incorporating project management into architecture? Then the second question is U. I think I saw something like a Ubuntu, which she didn't explain. That's under U. U. That's W.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll
Architecture
go
Kaite,
ahead
please.
and answer. Yes, thank you for your questions and your attention. Ubuntu, for those who know Ubuntu, we say for us, by us, Ubuntu is, I think it's a like Swahili type word where, we do things collectively for the good of all. That's basically it. It's for us, by us. We're doing things for our collective good. So that's what Ubuntu is. So I just sort of skipped it because we've talked a lot about it actually at the ACON CPD, introduction to the CPD event. We talk about it often. Now, the 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D is actually inside a building information model. So yeah, traditionally, we've done our drawings, then we do the 3D, we do a spreadsheet separately to deal with money, we do use the project management software to do the scheduling, we maybe specify sustainability or not, or in the drawing, or we put it in our specs. Now, what the building information model is supposed to do is basically to capture all of this inside one building model, and that's different. So by 7D, when we are talking about facility management, if you hand over your building information model to a facility manager, who is part of the organization that has, approached you to do this building, then they are in a position, for example, to know, okay, the lights that were specified in a particular area, when they start to go out, when they start to burn out and all of that, they know what was specified and they can now replace them. So that would be the purpose of facility management, for example, or if you want to change people around in an office environment and you know where all the sockets are and all of that. When you rearrange your furniture, you know exactly where to put furniture, new furniture, or the rearranged furniture to make sure that they can still take advantage of socket locations, things like that. So the key is that you could do all of this in different pieces of software. Maybe use Word for this, use Excel for this, and all of that. But the goal is that with a building information model, all of these dimensions of the project are included in that model. So you see in real time, for example, the effect of, say, the logistics. Okay, when did your steel arrive on the project? What effect does that have on the schedule? Are we going to gain time? Are we going to lose time? And all of that. You change a specification of something, say the light fittings or the sanitary fittings in a project, what will be the effect on the cost of the project? So all of that is all contained within one model. When you now move to the facility management phase, which is still within this model, you now start to talk about things like maintenance and all of that. What is the cost of maintenance? So with this, what this helps you to do, because from BIM models, you can generate reports. You can generate schedules, you print them out and work with them on other software. So what this helps you to do, it helps you to plan. So if, for example, we just see that a particular type of light bulb, all of them are burning out within 6 months and all of that, very easy, you make a decision and change to something else, So through the life of that project, this is the ideal now, through the life of that project, you should be able to manage the project until you decide to dismantle it, So that's what it is. So it's not project management in that sense where, you know, you do your drawings, you use something else to manage the project. In this one, you are controlling everything inside the building information model. And remember that it's not just the architect who has input into the building information model. Your engineers have input in that model. Your structural engineer, your MEP engineer, your HVAC people, they all have input. And for savvy contractors as well, they also have input in those models. You know, they use those models. They decided to ask for them as well. So they have their input because they are the ones who are going to deal with things like logistics and all of that. You know, so that's how it will work in this context. And I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Architect Ekaite Basifuja, once again. That certainly does answer that question in a very profound way. We are running out of time. This is 4:32. We are really racing against time. We are out of time. I'm just going to take two more people. I'm going to take our senior architect, Architect Ayodeji Olorunda, FNIA. I've asked you to unmute your mic, sir. Please, you have the floor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'd like to, first of all, congratulate our speaker, Architect Ekaite. I'm very proud. I'm very proud that you went to that great school where I also graduated in the 70s, Enugu campus. So I'm not surprised about the depth of your delivery. But you see, I don't want this to die here. I'm so happy that in your introduction, it was mentioned that you are an international associate of the AIA. You know, therefore, as well as I do, that a lecture like this on the AIA platform, any student, like one speaker was saying, you know, a while ago, any student, any graduate, any member can go back there, take that same course, and earn the same CPD point we're earning today. I think it's too informative for us to just gloss over. It's not just a question of going to the YouTube channel, but those students should learn from it. Learning is important because majority of those who came today are trying to earn CPD points for registration. Some of us already have our license for 2022. I already have mine, but I'm here to learn. That's why, because they're not here to learn, a lot of noise is going on at the background. Some are traveling, some came in just 5 minutes before it ends. That is not learning. And we cannot allow this to continue. So please, let's look for a way to make a lecture like this still relevant on our various, like Akon platform, if it is, or Anchor platform, where people can still go back there, learn, and earn their CPD points. So that it's not just something that will just be forgotten in another 2-3 months from here. Once again, I want to congratulate the speaker for a wonderful and a great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, Architect Ayodeji Olorunda. You just peeped into our mind. I think you are a very spiritual mind, in the sense that what you just noted and what the other participant mentioned earlier, in line with what you just said, Anchor is already on the pipeline. It's already in the pipeline. We are going to build on our website. We are scaling up our website. We are going to build our e-learning portal on our website, where, like you said, people can go back and learn. It's a learning portal. It's an e-learning portal where people can, at their own convenience, at their own time, go back, learn, and also, like you said, earn the requisite CPD point for such knowledge-based engagements. So it's already on the pipeline. We are working on it. It's been we're talking with our consultants to incorporate that into the framework of what our website can actually provide. So I believe, sir, we are on Anchor and we're on the same page. We're on the same page on this, and we have already gone ahead to begin to look into that, where that's with this, such lectures like this are sustainable, and there's continuity to draw from such wealth of knowledge. Thank you very much, sir. I believe that answers your question, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Like I said, Architect Olonda, I'm still going to speak with you. I've not forgotten. We spoke last time. We are still going to talk because I'm still going to bring you on sometime in the very near future to do a lecture for us, present a lecture for us. So please prepare, because I've already done what profile. I'm already profiling you, and I'm seeing areas you can be of great and immense benefit as an elder statesman in the profession to those of us who are coming behind you, and architects who are budding architects, the students, and the community of architecture at large. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Now, thank you, sir. The last person will be Architect Tiwalola Fadeibi. Please, I've asked you to unmute your mic. Architect Tiwalola Fadeibi, please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, and Architect Ekaite, as expected, you delivered a masterpiece. Thank you very much for your discourse. It kept us engaged from beginning to the end. The question I'd want to ask is with respect to the architect's focus on philosophy in the practice of architecture. When we listen to star architects, they spend a lot of time telling you what their philosophy is. A school of thought says that philosophy is garnered over time, and if you're still youngish in architecture, it's too early to pick up what you will call the philosophy of your design. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, please. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Architect Tiwa. Trust you to ask me a hard question. The honest truth regarding philosophy is that, one, it is evolving. You know, when you come out of school, you know, what you think, you know, is shaped by what you learned in school. Now, I was kind of deliberate, you know, about trying to sort of be inward looking in doing my research for this. We have all been programmed to think in a certain way, and it shows in the designs that we put out there, you know. So we have been programmed to think that only designs from certain eras or certain countries or certain, you know, styles, you know, are worth being called architecture. And that's why, you know, there is a place for very deep thinking in the work that we do. We must sort of look inwards to develop philosophy. And like you said, you know, many architects don't come to a place where they're comfortable about who they are as architects and about how they think as architects until they're much older, you know, and it's maybe no different for us. And that's why for us to produce architects who are not afraid to say, oh, this is the way I think, you know, and this is why I think in this way, it will take time, you know, it will take time and conviction, you know, it will take time and conviction for people to design in ways that truly, you know, model an understanding of the context in which you are designing. And that is the context of our climate, the context of our vegetation, you know, our context overall. And that's why I spoke also about vernacular architecture, you know, because I think that that will help us to refine the way we think about what we call architecture here, refine the way we think about how we procure and produce, you know, our building materials. You know, so this philosophy it's a long thing. You know, it needs very deep thinking, and it's different for different people. And I know I haven't really answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that response, Architect Ekaite. We appreciate that. I think, okay, architect, I see Architect Evonhon, Frank Evonhon. Please kindly unmute your mic. Architect Frank Evonhon.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, I saw something you posted in the chat box. Yes, go ahead, sir.
All right, I just wanted to contribute to the discussion.
Please go ahead, sir.
Yes, very quickly. It will appear that our architecture is driven mostly by commercial considerations, architecture for money. That's because we don't tend to have clients who are ready to invest in architecture as an art form. Almost all, if not all, the briefs I've come across in my life has to do with building having to be extremely efficient in material, in use, in cost, and all that. And so that limits our ability to really develop free-flowing philosophy. Those are just my short thoughts on the subject. Oh, by the way, Kaite, congratulations. I'm going to have to go through your presentation one more time.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Architect Evon. That was guest speaker at the last webinar, use of arbitration and dispute resolution. So Architect Evon, you can do that on our YouTube channel. Just sit back, relax with a cup of coffee and relive the experience. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to take just one more person, I believe. Just one more person, which is this name, Blaze Udaigwe. Sorry if I murdered your name. Blaze Udaigwe. I've asked you to unmute. Blaze Udaigwe. Udaigwe. Please, are you there? Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Go ahead, please.
Okay. I want to comment. I richly benefited from her experience. Actually, my contribution, I want to make a little contribution on the need for an architect to be very vast and experienced, which Kaite made mention of. We were working on a project which the mechanical engineer positioned the sockaway pit, at a place on the site. So as an architect, we went for site meeting. I had to advise that that position is not suitable. And he was irritated because he felt that was his area. But I had to advise that, yeah, this is your area, quite all right. But that position the effluent will not be able to flow properly. It needs to be vast. You cannot say this is for mechanical, this is for structural, this is for electrical. The architect really needs to be vast. So that as the challenge, you should be able to address it properly. So when I intervened in that regard, the mechanical engineer had issues, but eventually we had to follow reason because the effluent must
Architect Udaigwe, I think I have to mute you. Your network is poor. Your network is poor. Okay, I have.
Properly. I think, if you position the, you really have to thank Kaite for.
Thank you so much. I think I have just one more person because we are out of time here. The virtual space we are using here, they have asked us, they've given us a beeper to wrap up. There is Mohammed Abi, Mohammed Sani. Mohammed Sani, you could just quickly you want to ask a question about visuals. Mohammed Sani.
Yeah, hello.
Go ahead, please.
Yes,
make
hello.
it short. Go ahead, please.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to add on what she said about the visuals. She made mention of so many younger architects being able to use the visual better than the older architects. But I would have wanted if she made a point to mention that the most important thing is the functionality of the design, because based on experience, we tend to find out that most of the visuals are not really functional on plan. And then that's why whenever you're talking about the visuals, you should always mention that the plan should be functional first before anything visual. That is the aesthetics, trying to showcase, like sell the design to others. And that's what I just wanted to ask, because based on experience, younger guys are most like they are more interested in the visuals rather than what is the most important, which is functionality. Thank
you. Okay, Architect Kaite, please could you address that properly and put it in an accurate and proper perspective so that we're well informed and about what visuals is about and where it's placed and what you in context of your discussion, so that everything is in context. Thank you.
Okay, then thanks very much for that question. I think it's a very good question. And in fact, I think you've sort of answered the question indirectly, because what happens when it is just young people who are less experienced when it comes to the real technicalities of construction, and they are focused on how the building looks. If you are just trying to make a presentation and you do not pay attention and you do not understand how the software works, you are limited in how much you can question. Okay, where is this line, on the plan, how does this work and all of that. You are limited in how you can question. But when you have a working knowledge and you can actually interrogate the models that are being created, then you have better products, because whether we like it or not, we must present visuals to our clients, and in this day and age, like I mentioned, there are so many options, but older architects must understand how to use this, because they are actually in a better position, to make sure that, what is presented in 3 dimensions actually works in 2 dimensions. And so they must be in a position to guide the people who are actually using the software, but like I always say, it is good to have a working knowledge yourself, so that if your young person leaves, you can pick up the model and look at it and then examine it and question it, so very important. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much, Architect Kaite Fuja. Chinonso Obi, should I or should I not? The people here are on our neck. Okay, Chinonso, if you can make it very brief and quick. Well, they say brevity is the bread of wit. Go ahead, please. Make it short.
Good evening, Architect Kaite, for this wonderful presentation. I'm very worried in terms of client-architect relationship. When an architect is faced with an impression that the client is about changing for his services, and when she was speaking, she talked about humility. Maybe the humility of the architect has given the client the impression that the architect does not command the kind of remuneration he initially engaged the architect with. So what should the architect do in regards to that? Because personally, when you feel shortchanged, it affects the output of the job. So in that case, what do you advise the architect to do when the architect senses or observes that the client is taking advantage of his or her humility, thereby changing his services or changing the goalposts as regards to the initial enumeration that was agreed upon? Thank you.
Architect Kaite, do you want to quickly address that? Thank you.
Yeah, well, a couple of things have things in writing. That's number one. So if you actually have an agreement, with the clients regarding remuneration,
you have to beg me to collect because I don't.
It needs to be in writing. That's one. And secondly, your work will. If you're a younger architect, and all of that, yeah, it's easy for clients to take advantage of you, but that's where, the community of architects is important, where we can have like a common voice, and discuss these kinds of issues. Clients are different, but written information always helps, especially when it comes to money. It's important that in writing. But the architect, on the other hand, should also know that sometimes, like somebody mentioned, clients are very knowledgeable. And so they might feel, okay, that you said you would do this and you did not do it, or this is not what I expected. So you have to also be careful and manage expectations and manage the client's expectations of what you are going to give him. If he's giving you, say, a small amount of money that doesn't even cover your cost for 1 month, and you know that the work you're going to do is going to take you 3 months, 4 months, and you have to be realistic and you have to speak up. Your humility is primarily for you to always be open to listening and to learning, not for people to trample on you.
Thank you very much, Architect Ekaite. Okay, we are short for time now.
Thank you so much.
We are the final lap. Thank you. We are the final lap of wrapping up. I see that the Pianka is in the house. The president of National President, Architect Association of Nigerian Chartered Architects is in the house, in the person of Architect Dr. Noyo Omasone. Sir, kindly unmute and give us the wrap-up of this brilliant, beautiful, intriguing, and captivating webinar session. Thank you, sir. Architect Omasone, please. Pianka, sir, are you there? Okay.
PRO. My dear sister, this session we've had with you. And
change your mind. I know you know, that's why I asked. This house we never 20 minutes.
Analysis of what you said. Very beautiful. And we definitely will repeat. Give you a carryover, but because we want to have a carryover with you, we want to get more refreshed by and Jose's as far as getting our stripes in architecture. Thank you very much. Bless you. Gentlemen, everybody, the participants came online for today's event. We still continue to strive to improve ourselves as far as architecture is concerned, not only in Nigeria, outside the shores of this land. We try to reach you. We are still pursuing you. Thank you for being one of. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, one. Thank you, no, all. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
You head girl. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Dadisco, now you talk more. We are on air. Once again, Architect Ekaite Basifuja, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. Anka can't thank you enough. I'm sure, like the Oliver Twist, I'm coming again. I'm coming to meet you for another session to let's talk about it another insightful and instructive webinar session with you again on another topic, on another date, in another month, at another time. Thank you so much. We appreciate you so much. For our participants, we can't thank you enough. I mean, it's awesome. The statistics shows that the Zoom registrants we had for the Zoom registration was 810 registrants. We had approximate number of online attendees peak at 415. I think we should have had more than that because people were thrown out in and out of the whole session. This is about the biggest, largest audience since we commenced our online learning and training in Anchor, and I'm telling you, there's so much more coming on. We are going to have another webinar very soon, and I wouldn't want to talk about it now until I'm sure it's on the ACON CPD program. It has been approved by the ACON CPD program. You don't want to miss it. Now, the only way you are going to keep track and ensure you're part of another intriguing, exciting, and informative session is to stay on all Anchor platforms, groups, the online platforms. That's we have the YouTube channel, that's at Anchor Architect. For more information, you can join us on our Instagram handle. That's at Anchor_Architects. Please, Francis, can you post the handles there? Our Facebook at Anchor Architects. Then you can send your inquiries to our email, info@anchor-ng.org. And also we visit our website. Our website is there for more information about Anchor, www.anchor-ng.org. We're on LinkedIn too. Just type in Anchor Association of Nigerian Chartered Architects. We're on LinkedIn too. So just follow all our social media outlets on a WhatsApp group, on all our WhatsApp groups and Telegram group, we're there. Anchor is about service. Anchor is about growth mindset. Anchor is about delivery of the best knowledge for best practice, best practice in the profession, equipping you for extraordinary exploits as architects within and outside the shore of Nigeria. And that is what Anchor is all about. We're there to ensure that we are all adequately equipped to earn our stripes as architects that we are, that are trained and armed to the teeth to be able to stand our ground, to be able to hold sway and take the rightful place of leadership in the profession without feeling entitled, but having earned it because of our knowledge base, our depth and wealth of knowledge we bring to the fore when the situation calls for it or the situation demands, and we're in negotiation and interaction with clients, stakeholders, allied professionals. We are there to ensure that we as architects earn our stripes in those regards based on the knowledge base, based on the wealth of knowledge and information we have acquired and are able to apply into context of our situation, being situational leaders in every ramification and dimension. Once again, I want to thank you. This webinar would have not been possible without without the input of other partners with us on this call. We have, like I always say, a tree does not make a forest. I'm so happy I have him here, right here in flesh and blood with me, one of our interns in the Anchor PRO and Media Directorate, in the person of Francis Azubike. He's actually on internship at one of our architect office here in Lagos. Francis Azubike, he's here live with me here from Ambrose Ali University. Is the one that does those behind the scenes scripting and content writing, content creation, content creation of, delivering well for us here. Thank you so much. And I have all the way from Kaduna, quintessential architect Hannah to Idris. Thank you for joining us here too and being part of this session. Thank you, Architect Hannah too. I want to also thank those who were at the back end with us here, Amani and Victor here. Thank you. And I also want to thank the man behind the graphics, the flyer, the graphic designs we have. That's Matthew Uyi, also a student of Ambrose Ali University, also on internship here in Lagos at one of our architecture firms. Thank you so much for being there. Thank you for rendering that service. I mean, without expecting anything in return, and we implore us all to deploy that heart of service. Don't wait for what Anchor can do for you. Ask what you can do for Anchor. So we are imploring all to come on board, partner with what Anchor is doing so we can push architecture in Nigeria to the forefront and earn our stripes as architects in practice in the nation and beyond. Once again, I want to thank you. And on this call, my name is Bodri Oguntoye, National PRO for Association of Nigerian Chartered Architects. And wrapping up on this call, I say I approve of this webinar, Earning Your Stripes as an Architect. Thank you very much. And God bless. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to shut down this call. I'm just using that 10 minutes for those who are still not made use of the link. You can quickly do that while in the next less than 10 minutes, we shut down this webinar. Thank you very much all. Thank you for participating. Thank you all for coming. Look out, watch out for the next session, webinar session. Not just to end your CPT point, but to enrich and enhance yourself as architects and earn your stripe in that regard and in that respect. Thank you very much. God bless, and I'm signing out of here. Thank you. Right. Let me play music. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, representation. Thank you. Below that, so the salon.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh my God.
Didn't tell that was doing anything, though.
On your behalf.
Thank you.